Hello and welcome to another tip on Maximo. I'm your host, Chris Winston from Projetech here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Querying is one of the most commonly used features within Maximo. Today we shall take a brief look at maximizing and extending advanced search. Please note this is just a primer to help you along with your exploration of Maximo and is no substitute for formal training. Remember, if you have any additional topics to request, please send an email to media@projetech.com. To get a good start at querying, let Maximo write much of the structured query language or SQL. It can do much of the heavy lifting, so you don't have to. For better understanding of this, I'm going to break this demonstration down into three groups. Specific searches will be based on fields set up for them, including a hierarchy search, and we'll lose location, and dates, both of which we'll cover in the work order tracking application. Additionally, we'll look at line level searching when you're looking for, say, a purchase order based on the description of what is in one or more lines of that order. For special functions, we will look at excluding values from search criteria and contrast that against being able to select multiple values from a list. We will also look at searching for nulls, effectively looking for records based on data not being present in the field, as well as a not null condition when there is data in the field, but we are not concerned with what specific data is there. Lastly, we will take a look at a couple of modified or extended advanced searches. One will be in the inventory application for searching the inventory vendor record, which appears at the bottom of the reorder details tab. The other in work order tracking, when you wish to find work orders based on data on the actual subtabs, such as the actual issuance of a specific part, or time reported by a specific labor code. You can search on that labor code. Both of these, again, appearing in the actuals subtab in work order tracking. The changes required to make this available are done in Application Designer and is supported through Upgrade. So if you want to do these and set these up in your environment, you'll want to make sure you contact your system administrator to arrange for that to take place. What they would look like on your screen. Most of this is the advanced search and work order tracking as delivered with Maximo. The additional fields were added through the application designer. Similarly, in the inventory application, again, fields at the bottom here were added through application designer, thus giving you some greater capabilities for searching. So let's go ahead and take a look at Maximo. So we'll start out in the purchase order application. Before I get into the searching, one other thing I should mention, right here on the advanced search, you click the drop down, you'll see view search tips. So there's actually help for searching. In addition to the main help, the application help, there's also search tips, and those are available to you on all the list tabs. So you don't have to come back to POs to see it. You'll see it in work order tracking and inventory and so on. All right, back to the order of the day. Advanced search. So we come up with the advanced search. Upper portion of the screen, really your header information, things on the main PO tab. Then you have line details, things essentially on the lines tab in the application. And let's say, for example, we're looking for a line. We know you ordered a seal somewhere in here, so we'll go ahead, type in seal, hit find, and we'll get records based on not what's on the main PO tab, but in actuality what is on the lines tab. So we can come over to the PO lines, we see at least one line. In this case there is just one line, but in the other, there's 4 lines here. One of them has seal in it. And if you look at the structured query language that Maximo actually writes, that will be in the where clause. This is the language that is required for Maximo to actually execute your search. Nice to be able to let Maximo write all this, so again, you don't have to. You don't have to know the joins and understanding there. You just have to understand the application and really what you're looking for. Going forward, we're going to head on over to work order tracking. And again, while we're here, the view search tips is going to be here as well, again in work order tracking as I mentioned before. But for now, let's go ahead and I'll take a stab at the hierarchy search. So we'll start with the advanced search and work order tracking, and in our Max demo database, let's say you're looking for a boiler and work associated with the boiler location, we can enter boiler in the location using the equal sign, of course, just is what you do in cases where you know you have an exact match, and that would actually default if you had selected the boiler location from the list. So I'll go ahead, hit find, and that will give me records, looks like 11 work orders, only for those specifically at the boiler. But in a case where I want to instead leverage the hierarchy, first I'll restore my application defaults. That'll clear out my other fields and leave my default fields, class, site, history flag, and its task being the defaults. And keeping in mind, if you have a default query in your application, restore application defaults will restore that query, and you'll be running against it first. So just something to keep in mind whenever you are going to use a default query. But now back to our topic, searching location hierarchy, and get a better idea of what that looks like if I open the drill down and I look at the boiler. And this would then give me the ability to see work at the boiler location as well as the children locations, and in addition, any assets that are associated with those child locations as well. So when I choose to select the boiler, which of course I have now lost because of a search, so let me get back here to my primary system, and there's boiler. Lands in the search hierarchy, and I can hit find. Now instead of 11 work orders, I get a 148, so a much larger number. But as you can see, my boiler is still here, and then locations and assets that are at child levels and associated in the hierarchy with the boiler are also displayed. The where clause, pretty lengthy, that is written, and that's the only additional piece of criteria added was the search location hierarchy field plus the existing defaults. So Maximo does the work, again, the heavy lifting in creating the structured query language for you so that you essentially do not have to. I highly encourage you to continue to use that and let Maximo do most of the work. If you get here and you get comfortable in structured query language, you may want to make some changes or modifications, but it's always a good start to go ahead and hit the advanced search, or utilize the filter fields, which you can do here as well, and specifically further filter the list that you're looking for. It didn't take out a lot, but took out a few. And then of course Maximo has to write a new where clause, incorporating the additional things that were added, which in this case were the work type. If we go a little further in advanced search, and in this case we're going to restore application defaults, get back to our standard, and use a date. So let's try a few days ago, 7/24, hit fine. We should see a few work orders. Let's see, where are we? and in fact July 30th. So not far back. Looks like today is the 5th. That's our underscore there. So if we do 7 days ago, we should still get the same grouping. So let's take a look at not using an exact date, but actually a variable. So rather than using this translated date field, whoops, let's get all that out of there. A nice variable for you in SQL Server is getDate, left paren, right paren. That represents the current date and time. And if I do -7, that'll take me back 7 days. So report date greater than or equal to 7 days ago. Hit find. Should get the same group. Yep, looks like that. Now, if I were to say change that to 3 days ago, I'll at least get fewer and make it none. Yep, nothing at all, because it goes back actually 6 days. So you do have some flexibility in dealing with dates. For Oracle, sysdate as well as date would be your variable. And you can always check with your administrator to find out what those system variables will be in the individual database and application. And let's get back here in Maximo. So we'll take a look now and back to advanced search and restore application defaults. Let's say we are looking based on status. So I want to look at our open work. So when you select complete, specifies equal complete. That finds your complete work. But you can use the not, the exclamation point, and then the equal sign. So it's not equal to complete. That's effectively finding your open work, because history is already set to default to no, clearing out your canceled, closed, and edited history work. So it leaves you with your open statuses. So when you hit find, you find the work that is essentially open. Thing to keep in mind, you will see waiting approval. So if you want to exclude waiting approval, then it may be easier, depending on your status synonyms that you have in place, to simply go to the list and select the specific statuses that you are interested in when you do your search. And if you do the search on the advanced search, or if you use the filter fields, they represent the same thing for the fields that are in both places, so you can fill them in either way. In another case, and we'll go back to advanced search here, so we can hit a restore application defaults. And in this case, we're going to take a look at how we deal with nulls and not null. For that, we shall use priority. So in the case of the priority field, we may want to make sure that people are entering priority even if the priority is not a required field, which as delivered out of the box, it's not required. So we can enter in the special syntax for null is tilde, null tilde, and we'll hit find, and it will go through evaluating other criteria that may have been entered to determine workforce where there is no data in the priority field. The where clause, of course, will be written to put it into the correct structure query language. WO priority is null. And of course, questions about fields you can get with Alt F1 to get a little bit of field help, and of course the details on the table and field name. If we were to look for those, we would say not equal to null. Then we would get those fields that have that, those records that have that field populated with something. Not necessarily a specific record, but just with something so that you can see it. Alright, so a couple of additional things. We want to look at our extension. of the advanced search. So we'll go back to advanced search, again restoring application defaults, and we'll take a look at our ability to search based on actuals, which is something that was just added in through Application Designer. I can select an item from a list. In this case, it's a mechanical seal again, or I could go to Item Master Inventory to get that information, or even use a description instead of the actual number or labor code and select a person from the list. So you can have all these things set up and add it to the advanced search. All you have to do is be using the application and having that data present for your records when you go ahead and do your search. So in this case, I'll hit find, and I should find work orders where at least one mechanical seal has been issued. So that's going over here and looking at the actuals tab and the materials sub tab, and there it is. And on each work order there should be at least one occurrence, and there are in each case. So this allows you to essentially search for records based not just on what's on the main work order tab, but all the way over on the actuals and then materials sub tab. The structured query language that would be written is written correctly based on the relationships that are set up within Maximo between, in this case, the material usage transaction object or table, depending on how you want to look at it, and the work order object or table that are stored in the database, and then that being correctly set up in the advanced search when the control is designed and placed onto the application and application designer. So again, don't know that you really want to write the structured query language from scratch. It's again still a very good idea to let Maximo do the lion's share of the work. Last thing we'll take a look at in the inventory application. Let's see, here's inventory. Similar, we have extended the advanced search and created this frame area here at the bottom: secondary, vendor, manufacturer, catalog code, model number. So you have the ability to then search for records or values based on that data being present. And actually, let me go grab a sample. 95,330 looks like a good number, so we'll try that in the catalog code, and we'll hit find, and we'll see at least one inventory record. Yep, there's our one. So we'll look at reorder details, and we'll see it is down here in the inventory vendor information, but not present at all in the primary vendor information. So what you see essentially, the upper portion of the screen referencing the inventory records, and in fact we look at this particular field and Alt F1, and we'll see it is the inventory catalog code, which is what is set up to be searched Maximo out of the box, and then we've extended Maximo to be able to search this field in the lower portion of the screen, being the INV vendor catalog code. So when we look at the syntax that Maximo writes the structured query language for, and we will see that that is referenced in the structured query language for that relationship that is based and developed and delivered with Maximo out of the box inside the application. So you'll have these relationships in the quote-unquote relational database system that comes with Maximo. You have the ability to write the structured query language directly from scratch, but I highly encourage letting Maximo again do the heavy lifting. It generally tends to work a lot better for you for any and all searches you may do. And with that in mind, thanks very much for attending and taking a look at extending the advanced search. And should you have any additional requests, please send an email to media@projetech.com. Thank you.